All right, welcome to video 2 for this section. It's labeled video 2 because it is too fun to pass up. All right, so we're going to be solving with the square root property. This property is really good and really easy as long as you can use it. All right, if you can't use it, obviously it's not very good. So whenever possible, use this property. Example 2. Solve. And I'm going to write this in all capital letters because it is that important. Please remember to include plus or minus. And we'll see more about what that means in a sec. So solve these problems. 4x squared equals 9. Now, the A+ superstar math student is going to say, aha, we've already done this problem. I solved this with factoring in video 1. Maybe you skip video 1. That's fine. You don't need to watch it if you don't need to. But anyway, if you did watch it, we did this problem before. You can also solve it with the square root property. If there are no x's, if there's only x squareds and numbers, you can use a square root property. Because what we do is we just take what we had and take the square root of both sides. But whenever you do this, whenever you square root both sides of an equation, you always need a plus or minus. And I didn't even give myself room to write it. So on the left-hand side, we have the square root of 4x squared. That's 2x. You can always check by going backwards, right? If you square this left-hand side, you should get 4x squared. So you should be able to go back and forth. Squaring, square rooting, go back and forth. The right-hand side, we have plus or minus the square root of 9. Square root of 9 is 3. Next up, we divide by 2 because we need to solve for x. So we get x equals plus or minus 3 over 2. Or in our last answer, we said x is 3 halves and negative 3 halves. Both equivalent ways of writing your answers. Okay? That's it. That's the square root property. Now there's some really kind of sneaky square root property problems as well. I'll show you a sneaky one. X minus 1 squared equals negative 25. Now, this is sneaky because you might say, aha, we can solve this by factoring and it's already factored, aha. But we can't solve this by factoring because the right-hand side's not 0. We can't just say, oh, x minus 1 is equal to 0. What you can do, if you really love factoring, you could try to FOIL this out, add 25 to both sides, collect like terms, and factor again. It won't work for this problem, but it works for some problems. But we're going to use the square root property because, again, the left-hand side is something perfectly squared. So we're going to take the square root of the left-hand side. That's equal to plus or minus the square root of the right-hand side. Okay, we just take the square root of both sides, add a plus or minus, because this is importante. All right, for those of you who are less than fluent in Spanish, that means important. Okay, bet you could have never guessed that. All right, so here we go. These cancel each other out. We're left with x minus 1 equals plus or minus the square root of negative 20, square root of negative 25. Wait a minute. I remember 2.4, square root of negative 25. That's not a real number. Well, you're right, Jason, and you're also talking to yourself in a video for your students. It's an imaginary number, right? Again, these don't cancel in any way. Negative on the inside of square root means imaginary number. This becomes the square root of 25 times I. Oh yeah. We're back. Wow, what a coincidence that the very section after complex numbers has complex numbers. It's not a coincidence. We planned it that way. Okay? So let's simplify this a little bit more. The square root of 25 is just 5. So this is plus or minus 5i. Now we can add 1 to both sides and be very careful. No frowny faces for you. Be very careful. On the left-hand side, we have x minus 1 plus 1. They cancel each other out, right? And so on the left-hand side, we just have x, which is what we want. But on the right-hand side, do not add this to 6. This is 1 plus or minus 5i. This is real. This is imaginary. There's no touching. Okay? This is your answer. And even if, right, even if you had something like this, just 1 plus or minus 5, be very careful with this situation. You can simplify this. You have to just split it up though, right? That's going to be 1 plus 5 and 1 minus 5. You'd get 6 and negative 4 in that situation. So just be very careful with combining things, all right? Anyway, that's it for video 2. Kind of a nice video. Square root property is nice whenever you can use it. If you have something that's a perfect square on one side, just take the square root of both sides. And don't forget that plus or minus. So go ahead and do numbers 20 through 24 right now. And have fun doing it. If you don't have fun doing it, I have no threat for you, but enjoy.